Marita Koch just did something that seems physically impossible. She ran a 400-meter time so fast that when officials saw it, they thought the timing system was broken. That was in 1985. 40 years later, with modern training, better facilities, and advanced sports science, no woman has come close to her record. But here's what nobody can explain. How did a single athlete in the 1980s do something that no one in the world can touch today? To understand why this record is so controversial, so seemingly impossible, you need to understand what the 400 meters actually does to the human body. This isn't just a sprint. It's not just an endurance race. It's a perfectly calculated form of athletic torture that pushes every system in your body to its absolute breaking point. Picture the Olympic track in Tokyo, 8 lanes stretched out in a perfect oval. The 400 meters is exactly one lap around that track. Sounds simple, right? It's not. This race demands that you sprint at nearly top speed for an entire lap, while your muscles are literally screaming for oxygen and your nervous system is shutting down from fatigue. The first 100 meters, you're flying. Pure acceleration, hitting speeds that would make highway traffic look slow. But around that first turn, reality starts to hit. Your body begins producing lactic acid faster than it can clear it. By 200 meters, that burning sensation in your legs isn't just discomfort. It's your muscles drowning in their own waste products. The third 100 meters, from 200 to 300, is what runners call the graveyard. This is where careers are made or destroyed. Your form starts to deteriorate, your stride shortens, your brain is sending signals to slow down, to preserve itself, to stop this madness. Champions ignore those signals. Average athletes surrender to them. And the final 100 meters, that's pure willpower running on empty tanks. Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone, the current world champion who ran 47.78 at the World Athletics Championships, describes it like trying to sprint while someone's pouring concrete into your veins. Every step feels like it's happening in slow motion, while the finish line seems to get further away. So when Marita Koch ran 47.60 in 1985, she didn't just break the world record, she obliterated it. Her time was so far ahead of what anyone thought was humanly possible that officials initially questioned whether the timing equipment had malfunctioned. The previous world record had been 47.99, set by Czechoslovakia's Jarmila Kratochvílová in 1983. Koch didn't just break it by a few hundredths of a second. She smashed it by nearly 4/10 of a second. To put that in perspective, imagine if someone broke the 100-meter world record not by 0.01 seconds, but by 0.15 seconds. It would be like watching someone run faster than physics should allow. That's essentially what happened in Canberra that day. The Bruce Stadium track in Canberra witnessed something that still defies explanation. Koch came out of lane 2, her blonde hair streaming behind her as she powered through that first turn with mechanical precision. Her coach, Wolfgang Mayer, stood trackside with a stopwatch, knowing he was watching something extraordinary unfold. But here's where the story gets complicated. This was 1985, East Germany, the height of systematic state-sponsored doping that wouldn't be fully exposed until after German reunification. The Stasi files later revealed a sports program so sophisticated, so scientifically advanced in its use of performance-enhancing drugs, that it turned athletes into essentially human experiments. Koch herself has always maintained her innocence, never tested positive during her career, never admitted to doping, but the circumstantial evidence paints a troubling picture. Her training group included multiple athletes later linked to systematic doping programs. Her performances showed sudden, dramatic improvements that aligned perfectly with the timeline of East Germany's most advanced pharmaceutical interventions. Yet here's what makes this record so fascinating from a purely athletic perspective. Even accounting for potential pharmaceutical assistance, the biomechanics of Koch's 47.60 are still staggering. Sports scientists have analyzed her race splits, her technique, her energy distribution, and the consensus is that even with help, what she achieved required an almost superhuman combination of natural talent, perfect technique, and optimal race conditions. The race splits tell the story. Koch went out in 22.4 for the first 200 meters. That's fast, but not impossibly so. Then she ran the back half, the difficult half, in approximately 25.2 seconds. For comparison, when Marilady Paulino ran 48.17 in the 400 meters, she ran the back half in 25.89. Koch was nearly 7/10 of a second faster on the hardest part of the race. Modern athletes have been chasing this ghost for decades. Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone, with all the advantages of modern sports science, altitude training in Kenya, biomechanical analysis that measures every micro-movement, nutritionists who calculate intake down to the gram, still sits 0.18 seconds behind a performance from 1985. The track at Hayward Field in Eugene, Oregon, where McLaughlin-Levrone trains, features surfaces designed by aerospace engineers to maximize energy return. Her spikes are crafted with carbon fiber plates that store and release energy with each stride. Her training is monitored by GPS sensors that track everything from stride frequency to ground contact time to power output. And yet, 40 years later, Koch's record stands untouched. Some experts argue the record is simply the product of perfect conditions, meeting perfect genetics, meeting perfect preparation. The track in Canberra that day was fast. The weather was ideal. Koch was at her absolute peak. Sometimes they say the stars align for performances that transcend normal human limitations. Others point to the statistical impossibility, the fact that in 4 decades of advancing sports science, improved training methods, better nutrition, and global expansion of the sport, no one has even threatened the record. They argue that's not how legitimate athletic progression works. The women's 400 meters has evolved dramatically since 1985. The field is deeper, more competitive, more international. Athletes like Shawnee Miller-Weibo from the Bahamas have dominated for years. Paulino brought performances to the international stage that showed tremendous skill. The talent pool is exponentially larger than it was in Koch's era. Yet the record remains. It sits there in the record books like a mathematical equation that doesn't quite add up. 47.60 seconds, a time that looks like it should be achievable but proves untouchable. What makes it even more intriguing is that track and field records typically fall in small increments. Runners improve by hundredths, occasionally by tenths of seconds. But Koch's improvement was seismic. It was the kind of leap that typically takes generations of athletes to achieve, accomplished by one person in one race on one perfect day in Australia. The controversy doesn't diminish the athletic achievement, though. Whether enhanced or not, running 47.60 for 400 meters requires an almost perfect combination of speed, endurance, technique, and mental fortitude. It demands that every stride be economical, every turn precise, every breath calculated. Track enthusiasts still gather at major championships hoping to witness history. When McLaughlin-Levrone lines up in lane 2, when the starter raises his pistol, there's always that electric possibility that today might be the day. The day someone finally runs 47.59 or faster. The day Koch's seemingly impossible standard finally falls. But here's what makes this record almost supernatural in its resilience. Koch's performance exists in a strange limbo between legend and controversy, between human achievement and unexplained anomaly. Scientists have studied her technique frame by frame, analyzed her muscle physiology, calculated her energy expenditure, and every analysis concludes the same thing. What she did should not be possible. Yet it happened. It was documented. It stands in the official record books unimpeached and untouched. Some track historians believe Koch's record might never fall, that it represents a threshold that, legitimate or not, captured something so rare, such a perfect convergence of ability, conditions, and moment, that replicating it isn't just difficult, it might be genuinely impossible. Every athlete who lines up to challenge it carries the weight of 40 years of failure. Every near miss by someone like McLaughlin-Levrone, separated by mere hundredths of a second, only reinforces the record's mystique. The record has become more than just a number on a spreadsheet. It's a test of human limits, a marker of what the body can endure, and perhaps most importantly, a reminder that sometimes the greatest mysteries in sports aren't solved by science or training or technology. Sometimes they just exist, defying explanation, mocking our confidence and progress. But until that happens, the record stands as one of sport's greatest mysteries, a performance that looked like a glitch in the Matrix but was recorded as reality. 47.60 seconds that continue to mock the best athletes in the world, 4 decades after one East German woman made history on a track in Australia.